Hey guys, I hope you're well. Welcome back to At the Mat. Today I want to talk to you guys about workplace environment and how that could affect your life moving forward. So to give you an example, I had just been reflecting about this for the past several months, just from a personal experience, and I will go in depth, through what happened to me personally, but I just wanted to touch on how important it is to surround yourself with a positive, uplifting environment as much as possible. And a lot of that comes from our workplace because we spend essentially a third of our entire day usually at work. Now, give or take a little bit here and there, I understand, but we do spend such a large chunk of time at work and with people who are our colleagues or our coworkers or our bosses even. So to give you an example of what I had went through, I was just actually returning to work after several months of taking mat leave with my daughter. She was probably about 18 months old, I would say. So I was kind of working part-time and kind of home part-time so I could just spend time with her. My husband was gone to work. I was watching my daughter alone. And honestly, I always just do my best to show up for work. Like, I always want to be early and I always want to stay late and go the extra mile, do the extra work, right? Like that's just kind of what I pride myself on is work ethic and doing a good job in whatever I do, but work especially because you're being paid to do something. So my husband was gone. He had actually, this is to give you a taste of my husband, he dropped his phone in the toilet when he got down there. So he had no form of communication with me. So we were kind of like communicating via email and stuff like that, which was not pleasant. But one day, one evening actually, I got a text from my boss who said, you know what, I want to meet with you tomorrow after your shift. Can you meet me at this coffee shop? I was like, yeah, of course. What is it regarding? Like, I just want to be prepared. Is it something that I should, what should I do in order to prepare for this meeting? She said, you don't have to do anything. I just want to touch base with you before the end of the year kind of thing. This was around November. And I was like, okay, that seems very logical. Like, I understand where she's coming from. Perfect chance to get all of our stuff out on the table and see what we can do next and kind of make a plan to move forward. And that was that was all right. Like I kind of got some weird feelings, but I was like, you know what? I think this is great. Coming down to the next day, I showed up for my job an hour early, go to do my first client. A minute actually before my first client arrives, I got a text from my boss, and it was actually a wrong text. Like, it was not meant for me. However, I was the subject. And it just said, do I give Petra a reason as to why I'm letting her go, or do I just say it's not working out? So this text obviously was not intended for me. However, magically it appeared in my hands. And I'm telling you guys, the anxiety that I got right after I read that, and I'm getting it now, it's actually really crazy, but I was shaking. Like, I'm like, okay, so I now know that my boss is trying to fire me. I literally am trying to think, like, did I do something wrong? Like, what happened? What did I do? I read it right before I did my first client, probably the worst mistake I made, because here I am trying to do a job on someone who's paying, money to be here. And I'm just shaking through the whole thing because I know exactly what's about to happen. So I do my job. I'm like, you know what, just try to think other thoughts, whatever. And she just shows up right after I do my first client, pulls me into the back room and says, you're being terminated. And I said, why? And she goes, because I'm terminating you. And I said, okay, well, what's the reason? I've been here now for 2 years and my husband's out of town and I'm looking after my daughter alone. What is the reason? I always show up. I always do good things for you. And she didn't really have a reason. She said she's been discussing it with her lawyer for a year now. When I think about how anxious I was in that moment, how stressed I was in that moment, but also the effects that it had actually for me several months after. It kind of wasn't just a scenario where I was like, oh, I just got fired, I'm fine, right? It happens to everyone, all good. I was quite impacted for a long time. And for several months after, I talked to very close family and friends about what happened. And I just truly believe that, it's always about divine timing, and it's always the, one door closes and another door opens. And even though it might be really hard to understand that in the heat of the moment when things go, just crazy, there's always a purpose for it. There's always an underlying purpose. And understanding that at the exact time might be hard. But when you sit back, you wait a few months, you kind of reflect, you take some time, you kind of see how the puzzle fits together, right? And there's other things along that journey. There's other doors that open, and maybe I just couldn't be involved in this position because I had to be available for another position. I didn't realize how much of a negative impact it had on my life until I was forced out of it. And I remember having a conversation with my husband, just being like, I've never been fired from a job. Like, how could I have been fired? Like, I always do my best. And he goes, babe, welcome to the world. Everyone gets fired at one point. It gives you a chance to come back, reprioritize, your life, reprioritize your goals, and come back to the drawing board. It's not even a bad thing. It may seem like a bad thing, right? But actually it's a blessing in disguise. And so that was kind of actually the way I took it, and it helped me get through that time. And to be honest, am I still completely over it? Not really. Like, there's a little part of me who's still a little bit resentful because I truly believe that nothing I did was very wrong. But, I do believe now, looking back, that it was just such a blessing in disguise. And I know that I was able to grow so much as a human from that. Like, I never think of things as failures. I always think of them as lessons. So I learned a lot from that lesson, and it's kind of shaped, again, who I am today. And if anything, I just hope that you guys can learn from my mistake even, or if you've ever been in a situation like that. Like, I hope you can just understand that everything is, meant to be in the exact time that it happens. So even though it might make no sense at the time, like, you're in the right place at the right time, even though it might seem like that's the furthest thing from the truth. There's always a purpose behind it.